So we're just about halfway through this year now, aren't we? And I've just been thinking about some of my favourite figures that have come so far. And you know what my channel's like, it's a bit of an eclectic mix of all sorts of different figures that kind of interest me. So it's kind of been quite hard to choose what my favourites have been. But we're going to have a talk about a few of my favourite pickups this year. Hi all, Chris here. Yeah, I mean, this is not really an easy list to make, and to be honest, considering it's not the end of the year, I don't really want to make some ranked list, but I'm going to talk about 5 figures that I have loved so far in 2024, and I'm not going to do them in any particular order, I don't think, although I'm pretty sure I know what my number 1 would be so far, but there've been some great figures this year. I've been quite impressed with Hasbro as well this year, considering how frustrated I get with them in previous years. I think that, you know, some of the quality of molds has been really good this year. But either way, I'm gonna talk about a few figures that I've loved and picked up in 2024. So let's get stuck into it now. And do you know what? My first 2 figures are not only from the same company, the same range, they're actually from the same film, really. So I want to talk about 2 figures from Hasbro's Spider-Man No Way Home collection. And these were the 2 deluxe villains that were released. So first of all, the Green Goblin figure that came out. And I guess this might be a bit of a cheat, because actually this one came out in end of November, beginning of December 2023. But really, for me, it was impossible to get hold of. If you hadn't pre-ordered this figure, this was the kind of figure that was coming into stock and immediately selling out. So I don't think I managed to get my hands on it till January, which killed me as well, because I was so desperate to pick it up. But I love this figure. I remember first getting it out of the box and just being blown away by kind of that level of sculpted detail on the suit itself. So for those of you that haven't seen it before, Hasbro had really gone to town on sculpting that metallic detail on the Green Goblin suit, to the point where it really looked weathered, and there was some sort of really nice purple elements to it and gold, and the suit itself just looked metallic. And it's really difficult, I think, for companies to make those sort of plastic figures look metallic, but this is as close to looking like it was made die cast, you know, as they could have done, really. So I was always really impressed with that. And the same for the Willem Dafoe face mold as well. Incredible likeness to Willem Dafoe. I really do think it's one of their best face molds. And I think in general, I know people slate Hasbro a lot, and I think sometimes with good reason as well. But whatever you say about Hasbro and their practices and some of the stuff that they bring out, I really do think that over the last 12 to 18 months, the quality of face molds that they've been producing are just leaps and bounds above what they used to do. But yeah, I mean, I've been so impressed with this face mold. I think even more so than the next figure I'm going to talk about, I think the face mold wins on this one. The glider as well. Whilst the glider was maybe a little bit plasticky and potentially flimsy, and there was a little bit of like blooming on the plastic, the gunmetal grey plastic that maybe made it look a little bit cheap in places, I do think in general the glider works. And I loved the alternate heads, the fact that you could get the original Green Goblin head on it as well. So yeah, this was one of my top picks for the year so far. I've been really impressed with the Green Goblin. He looks awesome on the shelf. And that takes me to the next figure that I'm pretty sure you can guess, and that is the Doc Ock from the same movie. Although on the box, as you might be aware, it does say Spider-Man 2 Doc Ock, and from what I can understand, that's down to licensing issues. But yeah, this Doc Ock was just awesome. And there's a couple of things. So I love on this one the detail of the clothing. I think it's a really good representation of what Alfred Molina was wearing in the film. But really, I mean, it's the tentacles, isn't it? It's the arms that win for this figure. They are huge, especially in comparison to older Doc Ock figures. The original sort of Spider-Man 2 Doc Ock figure did not have tentacles that were anywhere near this length. And what that does is it just gives you so much in the way of posability. I love being able to stand him up purely just on the tentacles themselves so that he's hanging in the air. So yeah, I really thought that Hasbro knocked it out of the park with both of these Spider-Man No Way Home Deluxe figures. I think maybe there was a little bit of a lack of additional accessories with the Doc Ock, but considering you've got those 4 tentacles, I guess you can't really argue. I mean, as an accessory in themselves, it's one of the best that I've ever had. I really liked the variety of different heads that you can get for those tentacles, if that's the right term for it. Pincers, hands, that gave you a variety of different emotions, I guess, that you can make. You can give these tentacles, you give them the open, the closed, so that you can almost make it look like they are talking to Otto as they do in the movie. It just gives you so many options. And again, the face sculpt, Hasbro really did give us another great face sculpt, and I love the glasses as well. I think that they sit really well on his face and they just look awesome. So yeah, I have no problems at all with this figure, really, from a style and execution standpoint. I just think maybe it's let down a little bit by a lack of additional accessories. But again, another figure that just cuts like a crazy silhouette on the shelf, getting him standing while he's sort of hanging from his tentacles sort of on the ground. I think they look brilliant. So yeah, these two Marvel Legends figures make it into my sort of top 5 picks of the year. And they were very early on in the year as well. I think Dr. Octopus came out maybe February, I'm trying to remember, but very early on in the year, just after the Green Goblin. So love them both. Again, next up might be a bit of a cheat because it's actually 4 figures. But these are the real Ghostbusters Fright Features re-releases that came out around April time. I think these are some of the best re-releases that I've ever had, and the quality and the care that went into recreating those original 1980s Kenner figures is so impressive. So Hasbro did a great job of picking that Kenner line up and faithfully recreating those older figures. So, I mean, I know they're 4 figures. If I had to pick one, I would definitely pick Venkman. I mean, this Venkman Fright Features figure is probably my favourite figure from any of my childhood. I absolutely adored this figure, and you can watch my video on the Fright Features to hear me go on and on about how much I love this Venkman figure. Even though he's probably not the most iconic figure out of the range of 4, that would go to Egon, I imagine, especially due to the tie, the famous, infamous tie that he has. But I mean, I love all of the Fright Features figures, and I think that with the exception of Winston, they did a really, really good job of recreating the Fright feature itself and making sure that it still worked well. I found there's a couple of issues with my Winston. One where the feature itself didn't work perfectly. You really did have to hammer his arm down numerous times to get his head to spin all the way around. And also the fact that his neck wasn't even painted the same colour as his face. It was left grey. I don't know if that was a first batch issue or if, it was something that was just my figure, but regardless, the one that I had, wasn't fully painted, so I didn't love that. But everything else, the paint especially on these, they had a matte look to them, but the colours were crystal clear, painted so well. There was no bleed at all on any of these figures, and that's what I love to see, especially on a smaller figure. I really loved the fact that they painted them so well, there was no bleed on them. So when I put them against my older figures, they're brighter, they're more colourful. Obviously the older figures will have faded a little bit, but yeah, no, I love this range of 4. I love seeing them on the shelf next to my older versions, and the fact that I've now got brand new ghosts, trappers and ghosts that are all intact and not broken and not split. Over time, those guns, when you attach them to the arms, they get brittle and they fall apart. Apparently they changed some of the plastics that were used so that they are more hard wearing in the future. I mean, I'm not too worried about that, but I really, really like that I've now got a full collection, without missing ghosts or missing trappers. So I love all of that. I'm really, really pleased with this set, and Venkman especially is one of my picks of the year so far. I think next I'm going to talk about the most expensive figure that's on my list, and it's not hugely expensive, but this is my SH Figure Arts Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark version of Indiana Jones. And this was a figure that I know, again, technically came out at the very back end of 2023, but considering that you had pretty much had to import this figure, it was very, very hard to get hold of. I managed to get hold of it again at the beginning of the year in 2024. So for me, this is a 2024 figure, but I can completely see how some other people might include it in a 2023 list as well. This figure is the quintessential Indiana Jones figure for me. I know there are some people that don't love it as much as I do, and I kind of understand the criticisms to it, but as somebody who kind of built their channel really on reviewing the Indiana Jones Adventure series, that was my bread and butter when I first started, I was used to a certain quality of Indiana Jones figure, and this just smashes those out of the park, really. The level of articulation that you can get on this figure is hugely different in comparison to the Adventure Series figures. It was always frustrating to me and to a lot of the community that those Adventure Series figures did not have double jointed knees, double jointed elbows. You know, there was very restricted ab crunch movement. We all know the issues that they had with standing. They weren't very well balanced. A lot of them had peg holes at the bottom that weren't large enough for pegs to actually go in because of how tight they made the ankles. So there were some real design issues in general with the Adventure Series, although I still love it in general. But this figure is just spectacular in every way. I adore the fact that I can swap the jacket on and off this Indy, so that I've got the ability to have classic Indy in his leather jacket, or I can go Cairo Bazaar Indy with his jacket off. The options are endless with this figure, and because of that extra articulation, he's so much more poseable as well. The number of accessories that came with it, a really well sculpted fertility idol, and a gorgeously sculpted headpiece to the Staff of Ra as well. The number of different heads that came with him, this is hands down the best likeness to Harrison Ford that I've seen on a figure. And I know that companies like Hasbro have tried again and again and again with his face because he's on so many iconic characters that they produce. But this head sculpt, especially that smile, that smiling Indy, wow, yeah. So this figure is stunning, and I love that I can have a version with a hat and without a hat. If anyone loves Indiana Jones and is even considering getting an action figure of him, this SH figure art should be top of your list. And that takes me to my last figure, and I think I said it in my review that this was my favourite figure of the year so far, but it is the brand new Marvel Legends Cable. So this is the Marvel vs. Capcom version of Cable, and he is just incredible. The face sculpt on him alone and the hair just absolutely wins it for this figure. The quality of the colouring, the muscles on his body, the suit that he's wearing, the very 90s suit. You know, I know a lot of people feel that it's let down a little bit by the fact that he's not got a bare right arm. Totally get that. But this is a particular version of this character that they are going for. And yeah, I think it just wins in every way. Only let down for this figure for me is that we didn't get a big gun for him. I love seeing Cable with a big gun, but the fact that we got two guns, that kind of makes up for it a little bit for me. But yeah, I would still love to see a big gun on him. But I think the slightly more muted blue on this Cable, which you will see in the game, is slightly more muted than some of the other X-Men, works really well with the yellow, and he just looks awesome on the shelf. I even love the yellow plastic glint that's coming out of his eye as well. It works really well. And again, as I say before, the silhouette, it's just amazing. He's got a really good, strong frame to him, but doesn't look, over exaggerated. His proportions still look correct to the character. I can't say anything negative about this guy, really. I think as an X-Men fan and a fan of the video game, this just ticks all the boxes for me. So I absolutely love this Cable figure and cannot wait to get more X-Men figures that fit with him. I'd be so interested to see if Hasbro continue to do more figures from that Marvel vs. Capcom range. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I mean, there you go, really. They're my picks for my favourite figures of the year so far. I can't wait for the second half of the year. I'm really excited to see what we get. We've obviously got a lot of Wolverine figures coming out at the moment, and there's a new Wolverine figure with the 85th anniversary of Marvel, so I'm really interested to see that new Wolverine and a couple of the other 85th anniversary figures that are coming out. There are loads of other figures that are also dropping around the periphery as well. I haven't had enough McFarlane figures this year, so that's something I want to correct at the back end of this year. But yeah, drop into the comments, tell me what are your top picks for this year. I mean, do any of mine make it into your list? I mean, it's cool if not. It's totally subjective. But yeah, please drop in and let me know what your favourite figures of the year so far are. Maybe tell me why I'm wrong. That's what YouTube's great for, surely. Tell me in the comments why I'm wrong. So anyway, yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I love looking back on some of the figures that I've collected. Can't wait to do it again at the end of the year with the definitive list as well. But please pop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. And also consider subscribing to the channel for more action figure reviews and news. I've really loved doing this so far. And I can't thank all of my subscribers enough for your support. The community has been fantastic to me. So long may this continue, and I look forward to revealing a full list at the end of the year. But regardless, if any of the figures I've talked about interest you, why don't you check out this review next? Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you all take care. Bye bye now.